Today we are finishing sewing our minions. Yay! Aren't they adorable? Join us, won't you? Hello and welcome to another Mumsy video. Today is the last video in our series about making minions. So far we've got the arms, the pockets, the goggles, everything. And so we're gonna get right into it by folding our minions in half like a cylinder. And we're actually gonna sew them into a cylinder. Isn't that exciting? So we're going to pin down this edge, trying to match the overalls as best as possible and the goggles straps, because you want the back of the minion to look like the straps of the goggles go all the way around. And we're going to sew it together right down the back, middle back. Oh my goodness, they're starting to look like minions. You can see we've sewn down here so that when we turn them right side out, so you can see, there's Bob. Isn't he adorable? There's Stuart looking super cheeky. Now the next step is to do the top of the heads. So what we are going to do is find something circular like this. I kind of measured this out. We want it to be bigger than what it will be. See, like that. And I think this wreath, the inside of this wreath, is about good for Bob. And we are going to get our yellow. Fleece here. And we're going to trace circles and cut them out. So, I'll put my marker over here. And really, it depends on how big your guys are. When I make them super small, they only need measuring cups to measure the top. If they're super big, I don't know, like you could make them super big. You could make them as big as a hula hoop, I guess. While you're sewing this in, it will become more circular as well, so not you worry. Not to worry. There we go. We can test it. Put it in here and see. That's gonna look good, but we're gonna put the hair on there before we do too much more. There's a couple different ways to do hair because hair is a little different on each minion. So for Stuart, he has two little sticky up hairs kind of at the top there in the middle. So now that we've got this guy in here, what we're going to do is from our scraps of fleece, what I do is, there's his two little hairs. Now you can make them thinner, you can make them thicker, whatever you like. I tried kind of sewing them tighter with a little pipe cleaners to make them really stick up, but again, the pipe cleaners don't quite work. So we've got our little Stuart hair here, and we're going to just in the top middle fold it in half, kind of make a little slit in there. And like we did for the arms, we're going to pull the little hairs through here and then just sew them down. I think Dave also has hair, a little bit more hair in a comb over type pattern. So in that case, I just split this in half. I just cut the moon right in half. I put the hairs in and sewed it all down into a circle again along here. A quick note on the hair before we move on. This is the purple guy, and I wanted to show you that if you have a circle for the top, if you cut it in half and put the yarn or fabric in between and sew it back on and then sew the top back on, you'll have it like this, and you can just brush out the yarn to make crazy purple hair. Okay, so we've got Stuart's hair pinned in there and sewn inside. And I did a little Google search on Bob to see what his hair was like, and wouldn't you know it, he's bald. So lucky for us, we don't have to do anything with this one other than sew it in. So the trick with this is to turn them inside out, and with right sides together, we are going to pin the head on. Now if it's a little bit bigger, not to worry. You just pin it however it'll fit. And lucky for us, we're working with fleece, so it's very forgiving. It'll stretch when you want it to stretch and kind of work together. And we're going to do the same for Stuart, and what we're going to do is sew all the way around. Don't worry about leaving a hole for stuffing, because we're going to stuff him from the bottom anyway. Okay, now we've got the top head piece sewn on. Starting to look like a minion now, hey? So, we're going to do the bottom next. I'll show you Stuart with his little hair there. Super cute, hey? So we're going to do the bottom. So like for the head, we're going to cut a round piece the same size. This one is for Bob, this one is for Stuart, out of blue fleece. And you'll need that pattern that we used for the hands. I've included a pattern for the legs and shoes as well. And we're going to cut the pattern pieces out of blue. You can also do the shoes if you want out of black. The leg, again, cut on the fold. And I'll show you with one leg first. And I'll actually have to cut 4 because I'm making 2 minions. Anyway, cut 2 shoe soles. Gotta make sure I'm using one of those Snuggies because they are cheap at the thrift store and they are a good source of fleece. So it's kind of tricky too. There's our sole and then our upper shoes. We will also, and again, you can cut this out of black if you'd rather have the shoes in black. Sometimes I do. It just depends on how much fleece I have and what I am doing with it. Okay, now we've got our pieces done here. I'll show you how to put together a leg. We take this leg here, and open it up, and with right sides together, it's a little tricky, but we're going to do the short end of this U. See this side, the top end of the U, we are going to sew it along the bottom here of the leg. So pin that. And the leg, of course, is the same on both sides, so you can stretch it if it's not quite matching up. Fleece stretches, so that's always good. And we're going to sew that along this edge. Okay, we've got the upper shoe sewn onto the leg. You'll see it looks like this. I did two in blue and black to show you. And what we're going to do is fold this leg right sides together, matching the seams. And we're going to sew right down the long end. So you can see the shape of the leg is coming together. We'll sew down this long end here. Okay, we are back with our legs sewn up along that side here. So you can see we've got to put the soles on the feet now. And they're sewn on the same way as we've sewn on the headpiece. We just kind of pin them right sides together and sew around the circle. So, see, you'll pin them on, sew gently around the circle, and that will form the foot. Now we've got the soles of our feet sewn on there. They look kind of like this. Nothing too fancy. We're going to turn these right side out, and you can see it's formed a little foot and a leg. Like that. And the next step is to gather up our stuffing again and stuff the legs lightly. It can be a little bit more at the bottom. Perfect. Now, in order to get these legs onto the Minion body, what we do is we take the circle that we cut out for the bottom, and I'm going to use the blue shoes on Stuart, so the smaller circle for me. And what we do is we fold it in half, the circle, and cut it in half. Because what we're going to do, we're going to sew the feet into there. So make sure all the right sides are in there, and we're going to squish it. I don't know if you can see this, like a little pie with the two sides here. And one next to the other, and they're close together on the Minions and big, so that's why we don't stuff all the way to the top, because we're gonna sew it all in place here. So I put a little bit of pins there like this, and so then when we sew the bottom on, it'll be like this, right? So we're going to sew across that, catching everything into the seam. Now we have our feet sewn onto the bottoms, our legs here. A pro tip that I forgot to mention earlier is make sure that your feet are facing the same direction. You don't want one sewn on a little backwards. And now we're going to sew this in place. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our Minion inside out again. Make sure we tuck all those arms in there. And what I do is where I want the front, see where the feet are facing, you want this to be the front. I just kind of mark this with a pin right now, so that when I put him in, because we're going to put the feet inside as well, then we can line it up with the middle of this pocket. You can see that was sewn on right here. And we want right sides together. We want this middle here so that the feet will be facing the front. And we're going to pin this in as best we can. And we're going to sew it on just the same way we did the head, except we're going to leave a hole so we can stuff our Minion. You'll see this. So what I would do is I would sew along here, and I would stop about there, leaving about this much of a hole so I can turn him. So what I do is usually I mark it with a double pin. Then I just start sewing here, go around until I see the double pin. We've got the bottoms sewn on here. You can see they look like a funny little cylinder now with all the arms and legs inside. Now we're leaving our hole here that we made. Where is it? There. We're gonna turn him right side out. And we're on the last step, guys. Can you believe it? We've come so far. Our Minion journey is almost over. My gosh, look at that. And we've got a little hole here in which to stuff him. That's what we're going to do next, is stuff, stuff, stuff. Have it, do you see? And we're going to finish stuffing him. Then we're going to take some thread and we're going to hand sew the hole closed. Then we'll be done. Hi guys, you're done and you look so awesome. Look at our Minions. We are finished. How about that? It only took 5 videos, right? So, if you made a Minion, I would love to see it. You can let me know in the comments if you've made one. As always, like the video and subscribe. We'll be doing more sewing tutorials coming up. Perhaps a few Christmas gifts for the kids, and yeah, click the bell, do all that stuff, and bye bye for now.